This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure that I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you are always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. We very appreciated, very helpful. Allow us to see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that stuff. And also, or lastly, if you're on social media, then we're on social media. So you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And if you weren't taking the day off from social media, doing the whole blackout thing on Tuesday, which, I mean, I didn't agree with, but that's not the point. If you weren't doing that and you were on social media, then obviously there was a lot to discuss and to be discussed still related to all these protests or riots or uprising, whatever you decide you want to call it. Obviously, we started on what were meant to be peaceful protests, and it's kind of been co-opted from there. But generally speaking, there obviously, like I said, the prevailing theme or the prevailing discussion topic for the last week or so has been the death, murder of George Floyd. And not to be left out, also the deaths of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, all kind of in the same, like in a similar time span. Obviously, George Floyd is the most recent, and Ahmaud Arbery wasn't technically by the police, but again, all of these, all kind of happened like within the same span. So that's why everybody's kind of in a bit of an uproar at the moment, and we have gotten to the point now where it seems like everyone has to say something. And I know I talked about on the last podcast or the podcast before that, I don't remember exactly which one, that it was just like we had a discussion about should players be out there, or should players be using their platform to post. Obviously they can use their platform that they can like set up protests, they can go out and protest, they can donate money, all that stuff. But it's like, did every player need to say something? And I contended that they don't, because if you don't say the right thing, it's just not going to go well. So obviously, if you weren't going to address it in a specific manner, which, I mean, if you paid attention to social media, you would know that manner. Obviously, just addressing the police brutality and the murder first and foremost, and then, like I said, then you also talk about systematic racism and how the issues within the police force and just a lot of things that are prevailing, a lot of themes that prevail throughout this country to try to keep down minorities, especially black people. If you mention that, cool. But if you didn't hit the right tone or hit the right notes, then it wasn't going to go well. So that's why I said, while it's nice that different athletes choose their platform, it wasn't necessary for me, because I just don't need to know where everyone stands. I know where I stand. I know where my family stands. I know where my friends stand. All that kind of stuff. I mean, it's interesting to see where other people stand, but it's not like necessary to me. But as I was saying, with that being said, it seems like once that started happening, a lot of athletes and celebrities and whoever were using their platforms to try to discuss the topic or promote the topic, or just, I guess, just to create I can't think of a word. I guess, traffic around the topics and not just like this specific death, but obviously the whole Black Lives Matter movement, the whole idea of, not the idea, but the whole discussion or topic of police brutality. With that, then it seems like every team and every league and every organization felt that they had to need to say something too. And I believe I talked about in the last podcast, the NFL as a league saying something, and why that was like kind of ironic, seeing as they are the reason that Colin Kaepernick doesn't currently have a job. So that's like kind of funny that they would say something. But yeah, so like I'm saying, everybody had to say something, and some things were better than others. But yeah, like I said, everyone had to say something. Obviously, one of the first sports teams, I believe, to come out, or at least come up with with such force and so strongly, was the Washington Wizards, which makes sense because obviously there was a lot of, if you've been paying attention, there's been a lot of protests in the D.C. area, and obviously the presidents in D.C. said some things, done some things that not everybody will agree with, and obviously the same thing with the protesters. Not everybody's going to agree with everything they've done, for better or worse. But yeah, there's just been a lot of tension in that area, so they felt compelled to say something. Like I said, their statement was a bit stronger than some of the other teams or organization statements, because it wasn't just like a one sheet like long spiel from like the organization or from their owner or something. It was like 4 separate statements, all, and it said on the tweet, a unifying statement from our players. And it was, we will no longer tolerate the assassination of people of color in this country. We will no longer accept the abuse of power from law enforcement. We will no longer accept ineffective government leaders who are tone deaf, lack compassion, or respect communities of color. And we will no longer shut up and dribble. Which, that topic, I'll probably address that on the next podcast, just how the whole Sticks to Sports thing is probably all but over after like I said, the recent events of the past week. But like, that statement was obviously more powerful, because when you look at some other teams, other organizations, or other players even, their statements are a little bit more toned down. They may not be as forceful, may not be as direct, may not address or hit the necessary points that you should address in a statement around this topic. So, and then obviously you can see why they are met with a certain backlash. I mean, even Ben and Jerry, the ice cream company, if you didn't know, their statement was more forceful and more direct than a lot of teams' organization statements or league statements. The Nickelodeon had the 8 minutes 46 seconds, I think was the official time, of silence to commemorate how long the police officer's knee was on the neck of George Floyd. And obviously there was an uproar about that and saying like, oh, kids shouldn't be seeing this, blah blah blah. But then again, a kid in Tamir Rice was gunned down for having a toy gun. So if a black kid is young enough to be murdered, then I feel like by police for no real apparent reason, didn't pose any threat, nothing, then I feel like kids of other races and other ethnicities could understand what's happening and then thus live with a 8-9 minutes of silence. Like I said, and most people, I mean, a lot of young kids now have phones, and most of them have like iPhones, so they have access to social media. I don't know how much they would use, but they have access to social media. They have access to the internet, so it's not, I mean, it's not impossible for them to see these things anyway. Obviously, you don't, and these parents didn't want it from their television network. But again, it's, at this point, it's almost wrong to not say something. Now, what you say might not be right as well, but I'm saying you can't, you basically, we've reached a point where like everybody has to address, like I'm saying, different networks have even addressed, like say ESPN, NBC, CBS, all these different, so many different places have addressed this issue, which is a rarity because normally it was just like athletes or people of color or different things. Like it never got this widespread before. Like literally it seems like if you didn't say something, then everyone's looking at you like, whoa, what are you doing? Like I said, at this point, obviously, maybe not not on Friday, but like by now it's like we have to say something. So that's why when the Knicks decided to say nothing, or MSG or whoever, but it was mainly the Knicks decided to say nothing, that was also a big deal because it got leaked out, the internal email James Dolan sent, which, hold on, let me see if I can pull that up now. I didn't have it on me at the moment. Okay, I know he clarified it, then he wrote a second email about it, which he vehemently condemned racism, which is, like, again, kind of funny, because he didn't have any of that energy before, so it's obviously, of course, you're going to have that energy after you got caught all the backlash. But the original email just talked about, he was all to MSG employees about why their choice, the organization wasn't going to say anything on this matter. And basically, he said that they realized the importance of the issue. So then that's why it's been this turbulent time with coronavirus, civil unrest. MSG stands on our values of a respectful and peaceful workplace. We always will. As companies and businesses of sports and entertainment, however, we are not any more qualified than anyone else to offer our opinion on social matters. What's important is how we operate. Our companies are committed to upholding our values, which include creating a respectful workplace, and that will never change. And what we say to each other matters, how we treat each other, and then we'll go through a difficult time. And obviously, Dolan hasn't been afraid to hire people of color, black people, as head coaches or GMs or different things or different positions within their organization. So that part is true, but that would feel like that would make you easily more qualified to speak about it because you have people like that within your organization. So when that came down, he caught all sorts of backlash, and rightfully so. I mean, how are they any less qualified to speak on social issues than you or me or the Washington Wizards or the Nationals or the Giants or the Dodgers? Like, how are they less qualified? That's all I can say. And it's, while it isn't necessarily a social issue, it's just a right and wrong issue. Like, under no circumstances should anyone have a cop have a knee on their neck, or have a cop place a knee on their neck for 9 minutes. I think at least 3 of which I think they said. I didn't watch the whole video. 3 of which they said that he was like already unconscious, just there for no reason, just keeping it there, just because he can. Like that seems like to me that's a very black and white issue. It's a very right and wrong issue. Like, either you think that's wrong, which you should, or you don't have a problem with it. There's no like middle ground. Like, oh, but like there's nothing that led to that point to which he was pinned down originally that should have had him lose his life. Even the crime that they were called there for, I think it was first it was forgery, then it became like, oh, it was a counterfeit 20, even though I don't know if that's ever really been proven, if that was true or not, but the cops got called, and I'm saying if we're not talking about someone that was aggressive, we're not talking about when we've seen people shoot up schools or shoot up churches or whatever, or white people, I'm talking about specifically, and then get taken out and arrested peacefully. Like, nothing's wrong. Had Dylan Roof, who shot up a church in South Carolina, if I remember correctly. The cops then brought him Burger King because he said it was hungry. Like, how does you go from that to then a guy might have had a counterfeit $20 bill and you need to hold him down by your knee on his neck while 2 other guys hold him down in other parts of his body and another guy watches? Like, seemed like a very simple issue. So that's, like I said, that's why when the Knicks didn't say anything, it was like, how? Like, how do you not... I'm not saying you have to put out the most eloquent statement about it. Just be like, this is wrong, and we disagree with this. Point blank, period. Like, it doesn't seem like that simple. I mean, it doesn't seem that complicated. And obviously, he put out a statement talking about Dolan put out a follow-up statement saying that he vehemently condemns racism and all that other stuff. But I'm like, by then it's too late. And I'm like, because you already said how you felt. You felt that, like, we don't need to say anything. So you can't then say anything after you're pressured, because then it's not a genuine. What you said first and what you do first, that's how you feel. You can't do something and then react and then do something else after the people already feel away and act like that's how you really feel. And he may really, and I do believe to a degree at least, he did condemns racism. But like I said, it's too late. You can't go back now. You already made your bed. Now you got to lay in, and I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing you could do at this point. So
That's what I'm saying. So that was a rough situation. But it was also just kind of fun just reading through different organizations or reading through different teams or seeing things different teams did, because obviously the football team in Washington, they put out they did the whole blackout thing for the movement, but then like their name is a racial slur that people have been telling them for years to change. So that's like kind of funny. The 49ers did the same thing, while also again being a part of the reason why he's no longer, Colin Kaepernick again is no longer in the league. So just kind of funny. But yeah, it's just it was a rough weekend for teams or organizations or leagues not putting out good statements. And also, then again, this is less so sports specifically, but still sports. Just like you're talking about, like, oh, we condemn this or we condemn that, or we're against this, or we're staying with these people, we're staying with that people, or we're staying with black people, all that fun stuff. But then you look across their executive boards, you look across their presidents or their CEOs or their owners or their GMs or their coaches or whatever. White. So it's just like, you claim you stand with these people. And like I said, at least like Dolan could have at least gotten brownie points for that, because like he does have a good track record of hiring people of color to these kind of positions. But it's just funny when you see some of the different statements from different places all over, and you know that, like, all right, you say this, but then does your hiring reflect that? Or will your hiring reflect that in the next year? Like, do you realize that, like, oh, we have a way in which we can help with the institutionalized and systemic racism that plagues this country? We can help change that. We have the chance, we have the position, we have the opportunity. Will we take that? So, like I said, it will be interesting to see. And I just thought that was kind of funny how these different executives, or like I said, these different networks or whoever was posting these things about, oh, we stand in solidarity with blah blah blah, and I'm like, yes, maybe you do, but also, like, most of your programs are not necessarily starring black actors. A lot of your executive boards don't feature black executives. A lot of the writers' rooms aren't filled with black creatives or black writers and stuff. So I'm like, how down are you? Like, it's easy to put out a statement. It's much harder to act on that statement. So I thought. So yeah. So it was just an interesting week to look at, or a interesting weekend, a couple of days to look at different statements from different organizations, different teams, different leagues, because everybody said something, but very few actually hit the nail on the head and hit all the correct points and said everything needed to be said at this moment in time. But yeah, I thought that was just funny to look into. But I know some people are like, oh, race talk, oh no. So if you were that, I guess you could have skipped that whole segment. So if you want to get to more news related stuff, even though this is literally the most topical things going on in the world, so I hope that's not you out there. I hope no one's afraid of a little race talk. You shouldn't be now. I mean, it's prevalent, it's going on, everyone's talking about it. Even if you have a sports podcast, you gotta talk about it. But like I said, from a more sports perspective, the NBA will be voting on Thursday for their return to play plan. So we'll talk about that vote and what it kind of entails and all that stuff. So we'll discuss that right after a break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
back to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast. So as I said, the NBA is planning on voting on their new return to play format on Thursday. So hopefully by the time the next episode airs, it will be official. So we'll have obviously all that to officially set in stone and be like, all right, we can pencil it in for this date, and we'll talk about how they're going to try to return and the format and how it could work and all that stuff. So hopefully, like I said, fingers crossed, we'll have that for the next episode, assuming this doesn't get voted down. Which, I mean, the NBA's been a little bit better on their back and forth. We'll talk about the MLB in a second, but I seem to have more legitimate discussions on both sides, and both sides seem to want to come to some level of agreement. Not to say that the MLB players and owners don't, but just from the things that have been proposed on both sides, it doesn't seem like they're that close at all. As opposed to, like I said, the NBA seemed like they were at least a little bit closer to getting something more. They did get something that was more reasonable, quote unquote. Obviously, I'm not going to say what the MLB players are offering wasn't reasonable, but just like I said, it was far from what the owners wanted, and it's like it was going to be a whole mess. So, MLB. Not MLB, NBA. Apparently, like I said, the model, the return to play model would begin July 31st in Orlando, Florida. It would be a 22-team format, like for the proposed season, and the finals date, so the last date of the season, in effect, would be October 12th if it decided to go that far, according to sources from ESPN. Commissioner Adam Silver is expected to have a proposal take to a vote of the NBA Board of Governors on Thursday. Sources said the expectations that the NBA draft and the opening of free agency would file in sequential order. In October. The NBA and National Basketball Players Association are still discussing details on the format, and there is still room for the league to maneuver on the structure of return to play ideas. The Board of Governors requires a 3/4 passage of the 30 teams on a plan, but there's an expectation among owners that they'll fall into line and overwhelmingly approve the commissioner's recommendation on a plan, just because at the end of the day, everybody wants to get back out there so that everybody can start making money. The NBA has been advancing on a plan that would include regular season play-in and postseason games for the full 16 teams currently holding playoff positions, and 6 more teams mixed in within 6 games of the 8th seed in each conference, sources said. So those 6 teams would include the Pelicans, the Trailblazers, Sacramento, San Antonio, Phoenix, and those are all in the West. And in the East, just Washington, because the East is very bad this year. So no one's really that close. But yeah, so like I said, that'll be voted on Thursday from the Board of Governors, and I guess we'll have to get pushed through to the then the Players Association. And then, like I said, if it gets to the Board of Governors, I outside of tweaking some things here or there, that should be enough for the players to want to vote. And then we will at least have one league that is ready to return. Because as I said, as we'll discuss in the next segment, the MLB seems like it's much more further off. They just can't seem to agree on anything. But at least that'll be good. So, like I said, start up in theory July 31st. So that's the end of July. Run through the latest early to mid October. So not that long in football season. Obviously, then I don't know how that sets you up for the next season, because you can't start the next season in October, and you're going to need more than 2 months off. It's like I'm saying, you're not starting the next season. I don't know. Like I said, that's a completely different story. And we'll get to that when we get to that. But we're talking about most likely an abbreviated season for the next year. If they want to do that, they might not even want to do that because they already lost money on this past season. But if you want to be able to get some sort of normalcy or back to the way the game's going to be set up going forward, you're whether it's like I said, if you wanted to start the games in December in 2021, 2022, or if you just want to keep it in October, you have to figure out a plan to get the games done next year in 2021 or 2020, 2021 in order to, like I said, continue and have a chance to have a relatively normal season the following year. But I guess that'll be discuss after they get through the season, because at this point they kind of just got to try to get through it before we can worry about like how the next season is going to go. You don't even know if you're going to get through this whole season, so like I said, that's going to be rough. But I know also an interesting thing is that the 22 teams is kind of like the middle ground between the 16 teams that are currently in and the 30 teams that people want, because obviously it gives you more wiggle room and makes it more fair, even though again they played 60 plus games, so it's not like they haven't had a good portion of the season to get in the top 8 seed. So I wouldn't have felt bad at all if they only brought back 16 teams. But the 22 just, I mean, it's really just so they can potentially get the Pelicans in my opinion. That's all they're trying to do. If the Pelicans were way out, I don't think they go for this 22 team thing. They just want to try to get more games out of Zion because he missed so much time. So they're just trying to do whatever they can to get more games out of Zion. And with that, hence the 22 team format where him and obviously 4 other teams in the Western Conference are included. But I guess outside of those other teams, I mean, the only other team that has quote unquote exciting players. Well, I guess they have Devin Booker exciting, but the Suns aren't gonna. I don't know if I want to see the Suns in the playoffs. If you have Dame in Portland, that's probably the other thing. I mean, Sacramento's not bad, San Antonio's not bad, but no one's like, I need to see Sacramento or San Antonio in the playoffs. That could be cool or whatever, but no one's excited. They're talking about like people want to see Zion in the playoffs. Obviously, that'd mean knocking out John Morant, but you could live with it. Like the Suns somehow, if they did a play-in tournament, the Suns ended up being in over the Grizzlies. Like, oh no, take that back. I'd want to see Devin Booker in the playoffs because he deserves to be in the playoffs. At this point in his career, he's gone through so much with that team. But the funny thing about the team format was that teams were trying to. I think it was Clay Bennett, the owner of the Thunder, was trying to be like, "Oh, that's not fair. To small market teams, like we should bring all 30 teams back." And I'm like, this would be like a cool thing of solidarity. And I'm like, much like, and I salute the protests for doing what they're doing, but a lot of people seem to be forgetting, still in the middle of a pandemic. And if you are in the middle of a pandemic, you kind of want to limit your amount of interaction with the outside world to a degree, obviously. So I'd go outside, like, buy groceries, do other things, but you kind of want to limit the amount of people you're around, especially if you don't know how good their hygiene is, and if they are sick, and things like that. So I'm saying, while 30 teams, obviously, again, it's like a cool solidarity thing, why if I'm the Knicks, or if I'm the Hawks, or who else is at the bottom of the West? Kind of look, because they're bringing back like 13 teams out of the 15 teams in the West. Only 2 teams aren't coming back. It's actually kind of funny. I'm trying to remember who they are. I don't know. I can't think of them right now. But yeah, so if I'm like I said, Knicks, Hawks, if I'm the Pistons, I don't think the Pistons are in the playoffs. Like if I'm any of those teams at the bottom, I guess if you're going to bottom that, I can't even think of who's at the bottom of the West right now. NBA West standings. It is drum roll. Golden State Warriors. Like, yeah, okay, and Timberwolves are the only 2 teams. That's kind of rough. But yeah, so if I'm any of those teams, if I'm the Cavs, if I'm the Pistons, if I'm the Bulls, if I'm the Hornets, why am I coming back for some foolishness? Like, I'm going to come back, play a little bit of game just to, I guess, technically get a little bit more money. Maybe. I don't exactly know how much money they're getting out of this Orlando thing. Because obviously the TV money's still good, but I mean, the Bulls aren't going to be on national TV that much. And it's not like they have every network down. You're only going to have them on certain networks. It's not, like I said, the teams or the games that would have been at home in New York on MSG, or home in Chicago, or home in Charlotte. That's not happening, so their local TV stations aren't going to be down there, I don't think. We'll see what that plan works out. But yeah, if I'm those teams, why am I coming back for what? I have no shot at making the playoffs, and I risk getting the Rona. Like, cool for Clay Bennett, but when you look at the teams that aren't going to be brought back, okay, so you got Cleveland, then Detroit, and not even. Like, none of the Eastern teams outside of Cleveland are really small market. You got Charlotte, I mean, it's not the biggest city, but it's a decent-sized city. Chicago, New York, and Atlanta. Those aren't small market teams. And then you got Golden State, not a small market, and Minnesota, who has a bunch of other things they need to be dealing with right now. So, as good as it would be in a show of solidarity or whatever, like, I don't think it's really that necessary, personally. So I'm like, who are all these people begging for players or all 30. Like, why would you be begging for all 30 teams to come back? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, personally. Like, again, I understand the solidarity. Like, cool, we're all in this together, kind of thing. But if I don't have to risk getting the Rona, why would I? Well, that didn't make any sense to me when I saw it. I was like, it sounds good, but like, who's it really? Like, the Thunder are already in the playoffs. Like, what small market teams are being hurt by not all 30 teams coming back? Most of the small market teams are in the playoffs, or in the playoff hunt at least. I mean, like San Antonio, Sacramento, those teams are coming back. In the West, like I said, it's only Minnesota, who's going through a lot right now, and Golden State. Not really bother them. And then, like I said, in the East, it's really just Cleveland, and every other city is like a decent to bigger, like a mid at worst market. At least in my opinion, obviously. I don't know exactly how they determine that, but I'm like, who are all these smaller market teams that are being left out if you don't bring back all 30 teams? 38 teams that aren't, like, this is like, what? And like I said, then you're just getting a Rona for nothing. The same way, like, Dame was like, I'm not going to play games if it doesn't matter. Like, if I'm the Trae Young, why am I going to Orlando? For what? I guess for a couple, like, for some game checks? Really, I don't think he's, I mean, teach his own. I don't think he's hurting for money that badly. Why would I risk getting the Rona for some games that don't really matter? Like, alright, all it's going to do is, like, lower or increase our odds of the first pick. That's literally it. We're not making the playoffs. They are currently, what is it? They are, 34 games back of the Bucks, but they are 11 games back of the 8 seed Magic. You couldn't pay me enough to go down to Orlando for that. For what? For what? I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was funny. And also, I guess we can kind of discuss this once the plane goes through. I know some of the higher seeded teams are trying to figure out how they would work at home field advantage or home court advantage, I should say. Just because, as I mentioned, with no fans, like, it's hard to. There's not going to be that edge the crowd can give you. So how do you kind of how do you replace that? So I think we'll discuss that on the next podcast as well. Just because, again, I don't want to have the segment go on too long. But yeah, that's another interesting thing. Just like, how do you kind of make up for home court advantage? Because that's a key part. That's why you want to be a higher seed, because you want to get that home court advantage, play 4 games at home instead of 3. But now, if every game's going to be played in Orlando, unless you're the Magic, they're really in. Well, even if you're the Magic, it's like a sort of home court, but like there's still no fans. Like, it might be your home floor. Like, you have more experience on the floor, but like in terms of like the fans, like the home court advantage is because of not only just that, but because of the fans. So if there's not any fans, then I feel what does home court advantage really matter? So that's an interesting thing we're gonna have to discuss. But yeah, so after this next break, we're gonna come back and we're gonna discuss, like I said, the MLB and kind of how their back and forth is going, and how it's all really a mess at this point, and if anything's ever going to get done with them. Because at this point, it seems like they are very far off from getting any sort of deal put into place. So we discussed that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said, MLB has had some discussions of their own, and as we talked about on the last episode, they had, I think, what was it? They did first, the owners came back with 82 games, then the players went up to, it was like 100 something. I forget the exact number, but I know it was closer to 100 something games. And then now we're talking about here, the MLB owners talking about potentially going back down to 50. So there's that. Because again, the players are like, oh, we want more money. We want more money. You're like, oh, okay. Well, we want more money. We'll show you more money. And then bada bing, bada boom. Now the MLB owners are talking about 50 games. It's foolishness. But like I said, we'll discuss it. So from ESPN, unable to reach a return to play agreement, and the Major League Baseball has discussed playing a shorter season in which it would pay members of the MLB Players Association their full prorated salaries. Sources familiar with the situation told ESPN, although the MLB does not intend to propose this to players, the possibility of implementing a schedule of around 50 games that will start in July has been considered by the league as a last resort in the event that the parties can't come to a deal. I mean, if that's the last resort, then you really don't want to get a deal done. Players have held out for a full prorated salary, or full prorated portion, of their salaries based on a March 26th agreement with the league, and in an offer Sunday proposed 114-game schedule that would cover 70.3% of their original salaries. A 50-game schedule with the full prorated would pay the players 30.8% of that number. So you can see why the players aren't going for that. Language in the March agreement appears to give Commissioner Rob Manfred the right to deliver a season schedule after good faith discussions between the league and the union. Based on the feedback received from the Player Association, the agreement reads, the Office of the Commissioner will construct and provide the Player Association as promptly as possible a proposed 2020 championship season and postseason schedule or multiple schedule options, using best efforts to play as many games as possible while taking into account player safety and health. I kind of just combined them. Rescheduling needs, competitive considerations, other things. It says stadium availability, so on and so forth. Obviously, there was other things that were discussed in that original agreement. The talks about, by entering into this agreement, the Office of the Commissioner, Player Association, clubs, and players recognize that each of the parties shall work in good faith to as soon as is practicable, commence, play, and complete the fullest 2020 season and postseason that is economically feasible. And like I said, discussions haven't exactly been in good faith up until this point, you could say, on both sides, because when even the 82 games, which I think is probably the perfect number, and now you're trying to cut their salaries even more. So now the players come back with they want to play more games to get closer to the amount of money. Then now the owners, again, last resort potentially, and talking about offering 50 games will give you the full. And I'm just like, again, negotiations should be like, not that I've been in many negotiations in my life, but in theory, it should be like, all right, this side goes this team counters with that, and like each counter should get closer to like a middle ground. These proposals are going further away from each other. So they won the full pro salary. They're like, all right, well, we don't want to do that, but we'll play 82 games. Then the players are like, no, we don't want to play. We'll play even more games for you, so you guys get more money, but you got to pay us more because you're obviously playing more games. That seems reasonable. Then I was like, nope, we want to go cheap, and we're only going to play. We'll give you the full prorated salary y'all wanted. Cool, y'all got that. 50 games though, and I'm just like, who are you trying to serve? And obviously, if it wasn't, and that's the thing about these negotiations, and how it's going to be messed up if they don't work out. The players are going to get blamed to a degree. The owners are being extremely cheap. That is point blank, period, in my opinion. That is very prevalent. Once they decided they weren't going to pay some minor leaguers, like $400 a week, around like $1 million or so dollars, that the Sean Doolittle, the Nationals, said that he was going to pay it, and then obviously the Nationals had to step back in and be like, all right, we can't allow it to happen. Because then you want to see how bad that makes you look? The same thing when the Rona first hit, and
all these different. Well, I guess it was a lot of NBA owners, or we're talking about we're going to furlough people, or we're going to fire people, or we're not going to pay them their full salary. And the players were like, "That's terrible. Let me pay for your salary because these people are going to be out of work and can't get any money." And then the owners were like, "Oh, okay, actually, we'll pay for it now." And I'm just like, y'all are worth. Most of these owners are worth billions of dollars. Understand? You're losing money, so you want to cut back. That is reasonable. But just to be we're not going to pay these people, what? What is wrong with you? That makes no sense. And then, like I'm saying, it makes no sense to people actually on their side. People, hard-working, potentially people that may be out of jobs currently, are like, yeah, go owners. What? That's just crazy to me. Again, maybe it's not crazy to everybody out there, but that is crazy to me. How would you be siding with the owners in a situation like this, where they are going, especially in the MLB, in other sports? All right, maybe it's still not reasonable ever to side with the owners, but it's more understandable because at least they're negotiating in what would appear to be good faith. The owners in MLB don't seem to be doing that because they agree to something. And then say we're going to negotiate, cool, but we agreed to this back in March. We have it, the commissioner has it, it's an agreement. Then every turn, the owners are like, yeah, we agreed to that, but what if? Stick with me here. But what if we did something else that we didn't agree on? How about that? And then the players are like, what? Wait, they're just all this sitting there the what's it called? The Nick Young meme with all the question marks. They're like, excuse me, who said that? Shout out, who was it? Was that Levin? No, that's the Real Housewives. I think it was Atlanta. I don't know. I just know the meme. I don't know who these people are. But it's who said that? Who said that this isn't what we agreed on? We agreed to a certain thing. And then the owners, like I said, the MLB owners at every turn are trying to find a way that they can undercut the players or try to cheat the players, and they're gonna be like, hey, look, we tried. We on the last negotiation we said we'd give them the full salary, but then it's yeah, cool, but we're also only playing 50 games. Why? If I'm an MLB player that only plays 162 games, why am I coming back at all for the and risking the Rona for 50 games? They're just all right, you could. Honestly, I'm you can keep that. If I'm one of these top level guys, you can keep it. I don't need it. I don't need that little money that bad. Like I said, they're getting what would potentially be 30% of their salary. And again, I understand they shouldn't get all their salary because they're not playing all of the season. That's reasonable. But to offer or suggest playing 50 games in a season that's normally 162? If the season's normally 82 and it was alright, we play 50, okay, at least that's over half. We're talking about, like I said, they're getting under, not even a full third of their money. 30.8 is, I believe, the number that was referenced. Yeah, 30.8. If they gave them the full prorated salary, we would pay them 30.8 of that number of what the salaries would be. Prorated, obviously. If they did the 50 games, who's going for that? Yeah, like I'm saying. Also, alongside that, is that like I mentioned, and I imagine this is how the players would feel as well, is that this would just run contrast into what they already kind of offered them. So the first time they offered them the 82 game schedule with significant salary cuts, and then the players were just they want to play more games, not less. They want to play baseball. Why would the owners not want them to want to play baseball? That's the weirdest thing, is that if the players want to play more games, I don't see why it'd be hard to just agree to oh yeah, cool, y'all can play more games. But again, the owners you play more games, you got to pay them more money. You're already not paying them your full amount. You're already saving money. How much money do you need? Again, I don't know what it's like to be a 100 millionaire or a billionaire, but I'm these people must have a lot of things tied up into things that they must not be able to afford. They must have took out some big loans or something. Why is there so much penny pinching from billionaires or people that are worth billions of dollars? That doesn't mean you have $1 billion in liquid cash to give to people, but
I'm saying if you're worth billions of dollars, why is there so much penny pinching? I get this why some of the rich people voted in the president that we have now, because obviously the taxes and stuff. But I'm just like, you got it. Like, if you can afford it, it's like me not being willing to like tip on something that I get. Like, it's like, all right, they gave me a service, and if I can afford to tip, now if I'm dead broke, I only got $10 to eat, and the meal costs $10. All right, that's different. But if I'm a normal working person, I can afford to tip. I have the tip money. If you have the money, why can you not pay the people? It doesn't make any sense. And also, the league has contended that it will lose money each game it plays without fans, and with players making their full pro rata, has pushed for a shorter season because of fears of a second wave of the coronavirus potentially wiping out its postseason and the revenue that comes with it. The economic feasibility language in the scheduling section also could serve as a rationale from the teams for a shorter season. And I get, like I said, the 100-plus games, that's not going to happen. There's no way there's not a second wave in there somewhere. So I get that part. And I mean, they can say it's for the second wave of Corona. They just really don't want to pay people. That's what it sounds like to me. They want to get a shorter season, so they lose less money. Because obviously, as I think was mentioned, baseball, their gate revenue makes up like 40%. So obviously, again, no fans are losing money. Even though I think I said in Texas, outdoor stadiums go up 25%. So again, a little bit of money back. The Rangers and potentially the Astros if they open up the dome. But everybody else, all right, yeah, fair. You're losing money. That's fine. But like I said, it's not like the players are taking their full salaries. They're already taking a cut that, again, the owners agreed to. Like I said, it'd be different if the owners didn't agree to this. If this original March 26th agreement was not in place, all right, then I can understand why they're trying to be funny with the money. But when you have something in place, all these people are businessmen or were successful in some line of work before they became team owners. And from my understanding, in most businesses, when you have an agreement, you just stick to it. That just seems like a reasonable thing to do. A respectable thing to do, I guess I should say. Why would you then go back on your agreement? Don't agree to it. Like no one, I don't know this for certain, but I don't believe anyone held a gun to their head and forced them to make an agreement with the players. So, like, why agree to something you don't want to do? And that's how I feel. Like, I very rarely agree to things I genuinely don't want to do. But if I agree to it, then, alright, I'm going to go through with it, whether I want to or not. If you agree, you agree. And obviously I don't, like I said, it wasn't like they signed a contract or it was like legally binding or whatever from what it sounds like, but I'm just saying, if I agree to something, I, as a man that tries to have principles and morals, are going to stick to what I agree to. The owner's apparently just like, yeah, we could care less. And I'm like, that is just unfortunate. Because, again, everyone just wants sports back to a degree, but it just seems like this seems like it's going to be a precursor for the CBA talks next year in MLB, which are probably going to wipe out, potentially, at least a good chunk of the season, if not all the season. Because if they can't even agree to something like this now, how do I expect them to be able to agree to something even more important in a year? Especially after all the lost revenue coming from this year, where the owners are going to want to be even more stingy and the players are going to want even more of their money, because both sides lost money. It's not like just one side lost money. All sides of this are losing money. Like I said, it's just unfortunate, because it's not happening in any other sport, really. Not that there aren't back and forth, but no one seems to be this far apart on what they want, from players to owners. It's just nuts. But hey, we'll see. Obviously, I hope they don't do the 50-game thing, because if that's the case, if I'm the players, I'm just walking away. Like, clearly you guys take me as a joke. And I don't like to be considered a joke. Personally. Again, don't know how the players would feel, but I don't like to be considered a joke. So, I would just be like, alright, yeah, no, cool, I'm done. There's no point. There's no point. There is no point in negotiating if you're not going to take me seriously. But, we will see how that all plays out in the near future. And speaking of near future, with it being June now, that means July is coming up, and that means, assuming there's not a second wave of Rona due to all these protests, which would be very unfortunate, training camp should start on time in July, we can hope. And with that, there was some news about how the training camps will be held this year that would be a little bit different than how they normally are held. So we'll discuss that from the NFL standpoint, obviously, right after this break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
For this year, and I presume only this year only, but it makes sense because of the Rona, NFL teams must hold training camp this summer at their main practice facilities because of the coronavirus pandemic. Commissioner Roger Goodell told all 32 organizations, whatever, in a memo Tuesday obtained by ESPN. In addition, teams will not be allowed to hold joint training camp practices with other teams, the memo said, which, we'll get into this in more detail, but those were always fun to watch, especially for your team that was you're going up against, or I guess for the team that you root for, I should say, just to see kind of where you stand depending on who you're going up against. You kind of just, and also just like from the players' aspect, it's nice to just not have to go against your own team every day in practice. Just to see like, all right, do these same plays work? Do these same coverages work? Do these same schemes work against a different defense? So obviously you kind of have an idea of how your defense works, and the same thing for the defense. They kind of have an idea of how your offense works because you understand. And they do similar things every day. But now, like I said, when you bring in a new team, they do things a little bit differently. So you can work on some things. But now it's not going to happen. So we're interested to see how much of that rust it'll take to wear off. Because it's probably not going to be that preseason. I mean, there might be like one, maybe two preseason games. Like I don't expect them to do the full 4. That seems a little dangerous to me. But again, if they're full preseason, then all right, whatever. But it'd be interesting to see just how long it takes some of that rust to wear off. From that preseason to early season, just because again, offense is usually a little slow to get started anyway. But now, like I said, if you're just going against your own defense at practice every day, that, like I said, that could cause an even slower start because you're just not used to facing anybody else. Like you don't get a chance to face a different team outside of the preseason games, which is fairly basic stuff anyway. So that's unfortunate, but again, makes sense. The MLBPA was strongly in favor of these two decisions. Back to the article, which were made to limit exposure risks by avoiding the need for clubs to clean and maintain two facilities, by limiting the need for players and club staff to travel to another location, sometimes located at a considerable distance from the home facility, and by limiting travel and contact between players on different clubs in the context of joint practices. Goodell said in the memo, these steps are being taken for the 2020 preseason to address the current conditions and are not expected to be in place in 2021. Obviously, that makes sense. In 2019, 10 teams practiced away from their main facilities. Among them were the Carolina Panthers, who have prepped for every season since their first in 1995 at Winnipeg. I don't know why. At Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We are aware of the league's decision regarding training camp and support its goal of ensuring the safety of fans, players, coaches, and staff, said Steve Drummond, the Panthers' Vice President of Communications and External Affairs. We value our long-standing relationship with Wofford College and the Spartanburg area and look forward to returning in 2021. Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers are scheduled to play in the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio on August 6th and would be the first two teams to report in late July. Pittsburgh usually trains in nearby Latrobe, Pennsylvania. The Cowboys have held training camp in Oxnard, California from 2012 to 2019 and had been in discussions with the city as well as the River Ridge residents, and say that 3 times fast, in their camp home about pushing back their dates this summer as well as securing the site for camps in the future. With the camp at the Star, the Texas Heat could be an issue and lead the team to have practices earlier in the morning or in the early evening. The Cowboys have had early evening camp practices at the Star that have been open to the fans since the facility opened in 2016 after staying in California of nearly a month. Another potential issue for the Cowboys is that the Star had just one grass practice field. In addition to the cool temperatures in Oxnard, the team had the use of 2 grass fields to help ease the burden on players' legs. So, unfortunate for the Cowboys. See how much effect that has on them. Also, Washington, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City, Indianapolis Colts, and Los Angeles Rams also normally leave their main facilities. The Chicago Bears spent the past 18 years at Missouri University in Bourbonnais. Don't know if I pronounced any of that right. Illinois, but had announced earlier this offseason they would move camp back to House Hall in Lake Forest. The Green Bay Packers practice at their team facility, but technically stay at St. Norbert College in nearby. These are real places. De Pere, Wisconsin. I hope I pronounced that right as well. The Raiders' move to Las Vegas has been complicated by the pandemic. They had been working out of their Oakland area complex in Alameda, had been planning to hold training camp as usual in Napa, about 1 hour north of the Bay Area, but now will hold camp at their training facility, or their new facility, in Henderson, Nevada. The league announced in mid-May that teams could begin reopening their facilities on a limited basis when their states and local governments said that they could. The next phase of reopening began Monday, with clubs allowed to reopen ticket offices, retail shops, and other customer-facing facilities as long as the openings fully comply with state and local regulations. And currently, no coaches are allowed in team facilities, although that could change in the near future. Obviously, with more things opening back up and stuff. So, grand scheme of things, it is unfortunate for a lot of these teams, and especially the teams that travel, just because that was a good time, or I guess that was a good opportunity for these different facilities or these different colleges or wherever these training camps were held. So now teams are gonna miss out, or I guess these locations are gonna miss out on that, the tourist attraction of these teams being in their place. Like, obviously, I don't know how much football Oxnard, California sees. Not exactly certain, but I know I imagine it was a big deal for them to get the Cowboys to come there for training camp every year for the past 7-8 years. Same thing with the Panthers. Same thing with the other teams that normally practice away from their facilities. Just a good opportunity for other local, not necessarily all local, but other towns, other cities, other places to get some business from the NFL. So now these places that were already kind of hurting for money because they've been closed potentially for months now are now going to lose out on that tourism and all that fandom of not being able to have those teams host their training camp in those towns. And also, it hurts the fans as well. I mean, again, don't want to get the Rona. But normally training camp, because I imagine won't be open to fans this year, though they didn't mention that. But again, being at home facilities, it probably won't be open to fans, which, again, quick twist back to the teams that travel. So now there's people in California, obviously, that are Cowboys fans, or people in South Carolina that are Panthers fans, things like that would have maybe not have any other chance to see the team throughout the season. And now they miss out on their opportunity because now they could normally go see training camp or at least see the players out and about, or maybe stop by their training facility, whatever, however they could do it. And now, like I said, that's no more. That's unfortunate, not only for those businesses or for that local tourism and the local money that they would be getting, but like I said, it hurts those fans because there's a chance that they may not be able to go out and fly and see a game. I don't know how expensive trips from California to Dallas are, but they may not be that cheap. So I'm saying you can, and again, this is a pandemic, so it's not that big of a deal, but just in terms of in general, that ability to be able to see a team or be in a new location, be in a different location, or be in a location that, like I said, just kind of breaks up the season for you because you're going to be at your training facility for the rest of the year, pretty much. for your home facility for the rest of the year for practicing. For those few teams that do go somewhere else, it's like, I guess it's a nice little getaway for a month or a couple of weeks, however long it is. Just to give you, like I said, something new, something fresh, something cool to look forward to. Now, not to say that you won't look forward to getting back to your facility in your respective city, but again, it's just a different type of thing. And like I was going to say, with the likelihood that there's no fans at things anymore, that hurts not just, like, again, the cities where they travel to, but also just local teams. I know last year, my dad, who's a Giants fan, we tried to go to a training camp for him, but it got canceled because of, like, lightning or whatever. Or they got pushed inside because of lightning, then they wouldn't let us go inside. I guess the inside facility has no, like, stands or whatever. So he wanted to do that again this year because we weren't able to do it last year. And also just he's not willing to pay the MetLife prices for good seats to actual, like, regular season games. So this is going to be his one chance to see guys like Saquon or Daniel Jones or Andrew Thomas or Jabril Peppers or who else is a big name, or McKinney, Julian Love, those type of guys up close and personal. New corner they signed, James Bradbury, up close and personal. Even see how Joe Judge runs a practice, like those type of things that as a fan you don't normally you aren't privy to. It's nice to be able to see up close and personal as opposed to watching it on TV. But now that hurts because now all these fans that, like I said, normally training camp is, if it's not free, it's like cheaper for the times where they have it open to the public, or at least cheaper than it would be for like a regular season game. So now you miss out on that. So now, like I said, a lot of these people don't normally go to the regular season games. So that opportunity to see players up close, get autographs, get pictures, things like that, now that's taken away. So it's unfortunate, the whole training camp situation for all sports. I mean, but mainly football, because again, them and baseball are the only two teams that haven't, the only two sports that haven't technically started. Though I think maybe the MLS hasn't started either. I don't know. And so that's a good question. I should probably know that. But yeah, like you get my point. Just like it's unfortunate for those fans that want to be able to see and want to be able to participate or want to be out there for training camp. And also, I guess it's going to be a little bit weird because obviously the players are used to not having anybody at practice. But the few times where they did or where it was open to the public, like there's just gonna be nothing but music or whatever. It's going to be a weird feel around sports as a whole, with, like I said, no fans involved in really anything anymore. But understandably so. The Rona's not gone yet, even though, like I said, if you looked at the protests, you would believe that it was. And again, hopefully everyone stays healthy and all those things. Not wishing that upon anyone, but again, it's still out there, so you got to be careful. But yeah, like I said, it's just unfortunate for those fans that usually take that opportunity to one time a year be able to see their favorite players or their favorite team up close and personal. But now, whether it's because they're not going to the normal facility where they have training camp, or because there's going to be no fans at these practices, I would think, don't know that for a fact, but I will change my stance if that turns out to be false. But I would think not being able to be at the practices and stuff would hurt those guys, because again, a lot of people can't afford regular season tickets. They can afford to go to a free practice or like a $20 per head practice, something like that. But won't be doing any of that this year. And speaking of that and training camps and stuff, I wanted to have a discussion on, because it's something I've always kind of found a little funny, and that is why, when you look at football specifically, why is the level of optimism always so much higher heading into the season? And if you're kind of wondering what I'm getting at, I'll talk about that, obviously, right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So I kind of thought about this originally when the schedule came out for the NFL. I guess, what was it, a couple weeks ago now? Like I said, whole pandemic has thrown off my concept of time, really. The days of the week all kind of confusing now. The time passing, like it feels like this year has been forever, but at the same time it's like already June, so it's like that aspect's weird. It seems like a lot's happened, but then like I said, so it feels like a lot happened, but at the same time it's only June, so we still have 7 full months to go in the year. That's like it's the whole the pandemic has like ruined everybody's concept of time, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. You can tell me how you feel about that. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the weird one. But like I said, with when the schedule came out, it was interesting thing. You kind of say like, oh, this team, or fans. You look over Twitter, different social media platforms. Even when you like listen to like analysts talk about the teams, you're like, oh yeah, this team's going to be 10-6 or 11-5 or 12-4, or I think this team could sneak into the playoffs, or I think that team could sneak into the playoffs, all that fun stuff. And even I was kind of thought this up when I was looking at like the what's it called, Peter King, the article on Yahoo Sports. He was putting up like his like top tens, or even when I did the discussion on the NFL like projections and stuff. Like when you just look around these things, you all just like, it's always just kind of funny. Even the teams that like are like on the low end, or like, oh, we're not going to be that bad, like we're going to be blah blah blah, or like you're like, oh, if certain team, if like this breaks right and like this person steps up and that person steps up, we could like do all sorts of things. And I'm just like, you only ever hear that discussion around football, and I'm like, what is it about football that gives fans this level of optimism? I'm saying, I guess we'll get back to football in a second, but like when you look at the NBA, like going into the season, how many teams do you legitimately thought they could win the championship? And then, now, I don't even, in fairness, I don't even think the Raptors thought a lot of Raptors fans, I imagine, because again, every team more or less is like, oh yeah, this is our year, blah blah blah. I'm saying, like, realistically, like, how many Raptors fans do you think thought they were going to win the championship? I mean, you have Kawhi, and if he came back to health, like, it's a possibility in the East, like, isn't that strong, so, like, maybe, but, like, not that many. Like, you realistically look at it. Like, okay, so coming to this year, you got Lakers, Clippers, who else? I know Rockets fans probably thought they could win it. Who else is, hold on, let me look up what the standings look like in the West. I'm trying to, like I said, the games have been gone for so long. The Nuggets, like, maybe the Nuggets thought they could. Jazz. I mean, maybe outside of Utah, I don't doubt anyone thought were going to win it. Same for the Thunder, obviously. Them even being this good surprised people, including their own fans. Mavericks, no. Blazers, like, no one. And like, okay, so you got three and like 2 possibles, I would give it. Like, Clippers, Lakers, Rockets fans definitely thought they could win the championship. Nuggets, Jazz, if like things break right, maybe. So that's 5. And then on the East, you got Bucks. I mean, people thought the Raptors were going to fall off with Kawhi, and people weren't really that worried about it because obviously Toronto hadn't won anything in a while, so they was happy to win something. So I don't want to put them in there. Celtics, yes. Sixers, yes. So that's 3 teams. I don't think the Heat really thought they could win a championship. They probably thought they could be good, maybe get Eastern Conference Finals kind of thing. So I'm saying teams that legitimately thought they could win a championship. I will give you 3. So even if you add in the couple possibles, that's like 10 teams. I believe legitimately thought before the season started, yeah, we can win a championship. I mean, obviously the playoffs is a different story, but like teams that legitimately think they can win a championship, I think you can go like 10 deep at most. Similar thing with baseball, obviously. I'll have to do some baseball predictions whenever they decide if they're going to have a season or not. But even coming to this year, all right, so you got the Dodgers think they can win. Yankees always think they can win. Maybe the Astros. Don't know. The Angels got Rendon. Maybe they think they could do something. Who else? The Phillies, maybe. The Braves, maybe. I'm saying, who else out the Central? I don't even know too many other people out the Central. I really thought they could do something. Even like I said, so even with them again, I'd have to do more digging into the predictions because we never really had to do that because season never started or never really close to, hasn't really been that close to starting, honestly. But I give it like 5 legitimate teams. I think 5, 6 that think they could legitimately win the championship, win the World Series this year. Now, like I said, so that's 10 max, I would say. In like the other teams below them would need like something crazy to happen for them to win. And same thing in baseball. Like I don't even think 10 teams. Realistically, if you're going through, obviously you have odds and stuff, but like legitimate like contenders, I don't think there's more than like 6. At least again, that's off the top of my head, but maybe if I did more research, I would think a little bit more. But like I said, I feel pretty solid in my 6 or 7 in the MLB. Like I said, you go to football. I think there's a legitimate case that half the league, at worst, thinks they have a shot at the Super Bowl. And I'm trying to wonder, like, what is it about football fans that gives them all that optimism? Like I said, if I run through Peter King's top 10. All right, so you got, like I said, you got at the top, you got Chiefs, obviously, Ravens, obviously, Niners, obviously, Saints, obviously. And you come in, you got the Bucks. They think they could legitimately win, rightfully so. Seattle, you got Russell Wilson. You always got a shot. I don't know about Tennessee. No, Tennessee's out. Okay, why is Las Vegas in his top 8? What? I don't know if Las Vegas thinks they could win. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but maybe Raiders fans do. Same thing with, who was that? Titans? I don't know if Titans fans think they could win the Super Bowl, but I mean, yeah, I'll give it that. Cowboys, obviously, they're also in the top 10. Cowboys fans say they were going to win the Super Bowl every year. Hasn't happened yet in my lifetime. It's going to happen eventually, but as of right now, it hasn't, so I can ridicule them for that. Steelers, they got championship level defense, that they just had decent quarterback play. That's reasonable. Minnesota, reasonable. I mean, you got to see how some of the new pieces or the new departures will affect the team, but not unreasonable. Green Bay, still have Aaron Rodgers. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. Completely reasonable. Buffalo, I mean, they made it to the playoffs. Could have won that game against the Texans. There's no Tom Brady in the AFC East, anymore. So you may get a home playoff game as opposed to having to play off the road. I think them being a sneaky Super Bowl contenders is reasonable. Indianapolis, just because, I got to see what Phillip Rivers does. Philadelphia, I think there's a legitimate case that people could make for a path to a Super Bowl from them if their offense becomes what it can become with all that speed on the outside. And, I guess, in the slot potentially, depending on how they decide to deploy their receivers. And obviously with the great line. Go down to the Rams. I mean, you got to see what happens with no Gurley and no Brandon Cooks, but they still have a good head coach. Still have Aaron Donald. Still have Jalen Ramsey. Still have Cooper Kupp. Still have Robert Woods. And so, if you hope to reclaim or get Jared Goff to recapture whatever he had before, I think it was really that Lions game in 2018 is when the fall started happening, but definitely that Bears game. That's when I was like, ooh, okay, something might be up. I don't know about Chicago, but I mean, they have a guy that won a Super Bowl, and Nick Foles potentially starting for them. So I'm saying, this team's other teams like the Denver, who could surprise people, Cleveland, who could surprise people. You got, who else? You got Arizona, who could surprise people, maybe sneak in, get hot, that kind of thing. So I'm saying, you have, legitimately, I guarantee you, there's legitimately, half the fan base in the league think they have a shot at the Super Bowl this year. If, again, things have to go right, blah, 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 but, it's not completely crazy for them to think that they're going to win a Super Bowl. Again, if you would have said before the season that the Thunder were going to be a top 4, top 5 seed, people would have looked at you nuts. Obviously, you'd be right now. People would have looked at you nuts. Same thing for, if you would have said that the Heat would have a better record, which I think they do. Let me double check. Don't like lying to you guys on the podcast. If you would have said the Heat would have a better record than the Sixers before the season, people would look at you nuts. Absolutely, positively nuts. But that's what's happening. I'm saying if you're a Cowboys fan, if you're a Packers fan, if you're an Eagles fan, like again, if you're not like one of the top two teams, if you're, like I said, if you're a Bills fan and you're like, I think we can go to the Super Bowl, people aren't going to look at you crazy. And I'm saying, like, is it just the playoffs? Is it because it's only a 1-game playoff and there's so much randomness and so much turnover from year to year and so much change from year to year? Teams go from worst to first, it seems like, literally every year across multiple divisions, not even like just one, but you just have, it's at least one. Is that the reason why? I mean, not that there's not turnover in other sports, but it's just like, it's just funny to see the way sports fans think about their teams in all the other sports and they think about their teams in football. Because again, you could ask, like I said, half the sports, the fans of half the teams in the league, and they legitimately think they have a shot at the Super Bowl. And again, you wouldn't be that crazy to say that they do. But again, you do the same thing for, like, if you said, if a Pacer said, like, we could win the NBA championship, people are like, all right, come on, chill out. If the Mavericks were like, we could win the championship, all right, come on, chill out. Even the Jazz, who have a solid team, if they were like, we think we can win the championship, like, you'd have to get some lucky breaks. The same thing like as I mentioned, the Pacers. Same thing even with like the Raptors. No one would have, if you said before the year, yeah, they're going to be the second best team in the East. People are like, all right, come on, stop lying. Like, it's just, I just always thought it was kind of funny to me, just like how that works. And not that it's like, so that, again, I get it because of the playoffs and the randomness of the seasons, which is like, it's just funny, like how fans look at one sport compared to all the other sports. Because again, if you have more than like 5-6 teams in real title, and I mean, and some of the title contention belief is a little foolish, you could say, but it's like it's warranted, just because that's how crazy it is. No one would have told you that the championship games would have been Kansas City, well, maybe Kansas City, but like Kansas City, Tennessee. No one would have said that. And Packers, Lions, people might have said Packers with a first-year head coach. You don't really know how Matt LaFleur is going to do. And then even the Niners, people thought they could be good, but they weren't think they were going to get to the Super Bowl, have a 10-point lead with half the fourth quarter completed good. And that's not what they thought. And I'm just saying, like, that's the funny part, is that like if 49ers fans would have said, we're going to Super Bowl this year, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But then like they proved to be right. Same thing if you like Tennessee. I mean, well, granted, if they stuck with Mariota, it wouldn't have happened. But regardless, it doesn't matter how I'm right. I'm still right. This isn't like one of those math tests where you have to like show your work. Like if it's multiple choice. If you come up with the right answer, and my process was flawed, but hey, I got there. That's all that matters. Like I said, if they got to the AFC Championship game, if you would have said that before the season, Tennessee fans could have said that, and people would have looked at them and nuts. But they believed, they could have really believed that if ABC all work, we're gonna go. Like I said, I guarantee you there are some fans right now in Tennessee, wanted or not, that'd be like, Tannehill can take us to a Super Bowl. Like with their whole chest, believe Tannehill can take us to a Super Bowl, and you really can't tell them that they're that wrong. You may not agree, but you can't tell them you're that wrong. Like a Pacers fan tell you we're going to the NBA championship, you can be like, or NBA finals, you're like, all right, come on. I'm not even going to talk to you. Like, that's just foolish. But you could dismiss that. Like, Tennessee fans, whether it's misguided or not, you can't really dismiss it because that's just how random football of the NFL is. Which is, like I said, it's just kind of funny when you think about it. Just like, why in all the sports does that level of optimism would be deemed like foolish or misguided, or I mean, and it is for Cowboys fans, but for everybody else in the NFL, it's not. But like I said, when you get to the NFL, if you have that same level of optimism, it's like, yeah, all right, okay, I can see it. Like I said, except if you're a Cowboys fan. If you're a Cowboys fan, then you're not getting the Super Bowl this year. I don't care if I have the facts to back that up or not. It's not happening. It's my personal bias. I could very well be wrong because they could definitely get to the Super Bowl, but I'm still going to believe that they're not until it happens. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a funny thing for you guys to all like think about. Is like what do you guys think the reason is for all the level of optimism when it comes to the NFL fans, as opposed to, like I said, other sports? like the Mets fans don't think they're going to go to the World Series. I don't know if, who else? It's like a random team. Like, I don't think Colorado Rockies fans think like, oh yeah, this is our year. Like, no one thinks that. But again, you ask Denver Broncos fans, like, hey, look, Drew Lock take that next step, we get hot. Like, who knows? Like I said, the Mets fans are just like, hey, let's just not have any catastrophic injuries, which, I mean, they already had Syndergaard be out. But let's just have not that many catastrophic injuries and just, like, try to be competitive by September. And, like, that's a good season. Cardinals fans are like, hey, Kyler Murray takes that next step, we get DeAndre, like, we go Super Bowl. And both sides would be right. It's just funny. Like I said, think about that, talk about that with your friends. It's just something I'd been thinking about and wanted to discuss, and I was just like, I thought that was kind of interesting. And speaking of topics, interesting topics to discuss, I believe it was DeSean Jackson was on Lane Johnson's like podcasty thing that he's doing now outside the lane, I believe is what he's calling it. And they were obviously discussing a lot of things, but there was one topic they discussed of how to kind of deal with the aspect of not having any fans in the seats for games. And I guess and this is mainly for football, but it could apply across all sports potentially. So we discussed what that topic was and what the thing that DeSean Jackson wanted implemented would be. We kind of touched it in passing, but I was going to do a little deep dive, swoop into it. So we'll discuss that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Podcast Network. So again, this is from, I believe, Lane Johnson's podcast, but the article is from CBS Sports. There's other articles if you didn't want to watch the whole segment, just wanted to get the abbreviated version, which I mean, in fairness, I'm giving you, so you could just stay here. But if you wanted to see it in writing, like I said, CBS Sports is where I'm reading it from. So, with the COVID-19 and the uncertainty around whether fans are going to be able to attend games or be in stadiums or stuff. People are trying to think of creative ways, whether it's pumping in crowd noise or just kind of having to deal with the silence or miking up reps or whatever, or miking up refs or whatever other crazy idea people may have. They're out there because obviously people just like throwing things out there to see what sticks. And with that, like I said, DeSean Jackson had his own idea. Should it come around in September and fans, which it probably will and should be, if you don't want to be the cause of the second wave, if, like I said, if teams are forced to play in empty stadiums for their games. There, like I mentioned, there have been rumors that teams would pipe in crowd noise, but the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver floated a much more intriguing idea on teammate Lane Johnson's Outside the Lane YouTube series. So it's not necessarily like a podcast, but I mean, a lot of podcasts end up on YouTube, but it's neither here nor there. I don't really care about the semantics. Wondering if the NFL would be open to attaching a microphone to every player on the field. It's going to get crazy without fans, Jackson said. I think they should mic up players. I think they should give fans insight to what happens, what really goes on in between the white lines. It gets crazy. I know in the trenches it gets crazy. I know on the outside it gets crazy too. The conversations we have going back and forth, several players have weighed in publicly on the subject, but not all of them are on the same page. Kirk Cousins recently drew the ire of NFL fans, later walking back his comments, because that's just how these things go, when he stated an empty stadium would be refreshing and a breath of fresh air. Obviously, because Kirk has had his detractors over the course of his career. Silenced them a little bit last year, but then put up that stinker against the Niners. So they're still there until, for most quarterbacks, until you win a Super Bowl, you're going to have some level of detractors. And even when you win, it's just like, oh, you only won one, or oh, you only won two. Like, they'll figure out a reason to hate on you. That's how sports fans work. It is what it is. But obviously, like I said, Kirk Cousins has had his issues with, like, primetime games or big-time matchups. So it wasn't that shocking that he would be the guy to say, like, hey, that'd be kind of cool if we just didn't have fans. But also, it's not surprising that people would be like, would kind of like push back against that, because again, it's like, Kirk, you don't normally play well in these primetime games. You need to get better at playing well in these primetime games, or these high leverage games, or these primetime matchups and stuff like that. Like, of course, you would want to not have fans, and that's why you have to walk the comments back. I'm pretty sure that's why you have to walk the comments back. I could have just made that all up and just assumed things. Let me actually look like. Okay, so another part of the reason why he said that was because they're practicing in an empty grass area, implement freight crowd noise for away games. But I guess you're used to it from OTAs and training camps and stuff, and we can just play football. And like I said, he walked it back originally, and then his point was that he loves the game, any chance he gets to play. I would obviously prefer to have fans. I guess that was another reason for the pushback, because it's like, oh, what, you don't care about the hardworking fans that like come to support you and pay your salary or whatever. So again, when you diss the fans, they're never going to be happy. So that's also okay. So what I said is probably my own personal feelings towards Kirk, and what he said, obviously about fans, like the pushback from the fans being like, hey, now we can't go to the game to watch you guys play. I think that was probably a part of the reason why I had to walk it back. So then he said that Melvin Gordon used the potential problem as a device to take a jab at his former team, the Los Angeles Chargers, noting that he's accustomed to playing with no fans present because, like, obviously they don't either A, they don't travel well, or B, in their home stadium it wasn't really getting sold out, and if there was a majority of fans there, usually the opposing team fans. So he's like, hey, look, I'm not like this will be nothing new to me, which is unfortunate for the Chargers, but not actually wrong. So can't be that mad at him for it, and he doesn't play there anymore. So teams take jabs at their former teams all the time. The reality, going back to the article, the reality is you'd be hard pressed to find players who want an empty home stadium, or no one who looks forward to that possibility. For the latter, the massive loss of revenue not only impacts them directly, but also fractures the local economy as a whole, including independent vendors who operate within the stadium. For the former, the impact is much less complicated but hyper-emotional. My feeling about playing in an empty stadium, I definitely can't recall playing in one. Obviously, I don't. Even in Pop Warner, there were still fans in the stands. Like, there's never been any moment in time where you've played sports in a completely empty arena that was like a legitimate game, not like practices or like a scrimmage or whatever. Like a legitimate game, even scrimmages, there were still fans. Like, it's literally just practice. That's the only time you don't have any fans. So it's going to be weird. And look, what do you know? Me and DeSean Jackson think right alike, because his next comments was, even in Pop Warner, I used to look in the stands and have fans, so it's going to be a culture shock. I think at the end of the day, we're all professionals and we'll adapt to having no fans present. It'll definitely be weird at first, but hopefully they can figure out an alternative to that. I think a lot of teams and players feed off that energy, which is what I've said on the podcast. I sometimes know what I'm talking about. It's doubtful the NFL expands this mic'd up program to the extent of where each team would be comfortable risking the exposure of proprietary information, and some players would probably prefer not having their battle cries placed on full display, and considering they're seldom rated G for general audiences. Jackson's idea is one fans would cling to, though, even if it never gets past the gatekeeper. So, the end of that article is basically how I feel. There is zero, the big donut, no shot that the NFL will go through with this, just because there's so many ways this can go wrong. Because, like, first off, you have if you mic'd up everyone, you have 22 mics. That's a lot of stuff. First of all, there's a lot of stuff you got to filter out. Because normally when they do, like, the mic'd up things on whether it's on like Monday Night Football or they do it on like the TNT games or the ESPN games in the basketball, or even when they kind of did it. I mean, it was a little bit easier with baseball just because there's so much downtime in between pitches and stuff. But I'm saying, like, normally when they do that, they post bits and pieces. They're not just playing the whole thing in full for you throughout the game. They just pick, like, all right, this is a good soundbite, this is a good soundbite, this is a good moment, stuff like that. And they're like, all right, cool, we'll pick those. And then obviously they did get in some trouble from the last year with the ESPN with the Jets-Patriots Monday night game when Jim Dorn was like, I'm seeing ghosts and stuff. That's not what you should, even though it's a real quote, it's not something that you would want put out if you're the Jets. Like, why would you want that put out to show that your franchise quarterback was shook in the pocket? Like, why you wouldn't want that? And that's completely reasonable. And obviously, like I said, their relationship between the Jets and ESPN will be like going forward, and if they'll be, or even if Sam Dunn will want to get mic'd up again. Because if I'm him, I wouldn't. If I know that if you're not going to do the proper vetting to make sure that the quote doesn't make me look absolutely terrible. Like, if I give you you mic up the good players in theory, but like I don't think a player necessarily has to be forced to be mic'd up. If they can choose to. Like, I think they just pick one player and they like, oh, okay, yeah, no. And I imagine players have said no and can say no. But I'm saying, like, if I'm Sam Darnold, why would I even want to risk that again this year in case I have another bad game and say something else that ESPN doesn't, like I said, probably properly look over, and then boom, now I got another bad quote about me. Like I'm said, so that part would be bad. So that aspect of it is going to be tough when you're just like, you have to weed through all that stuff. And then plus, like I said, there's a lot of cursing, so unless you're going to do like what they have been doing, which I have appreciated, with the 30 for 30s where you play it like, you put the disclaimer out there like, look, this is for mature audiences only, but that's not going to work because of like fans. I mean, because of it's not going to work because like there's going to be kids at home. So like, how can you just say like only adults can watch the NFL? Like, that's not going to work. People would be outraged. So there's that. And plus, I mean, a lot of fans watch it on mute anyway. I'm going to say not a lot, but I know some of the players only broadcast for the NBA. I watch on mute. Like, with ESPN, I'm not really a big... I mean, they're all right together, but, like, Booger McFarland says some things, and I'm like, what are you talking about, man? So, like, I know a lot of people watch, like, ESPN, like, the Monday Night Football games on mute. Just, like, they might just watch games in general on mute, because you just want to be able to talk and converse with your own family or friends, whoever's at your house watching the game, and you can't do that if the announcers are talking. So... I'm saying you're talking about something that might not even be that serious. But yeah, like I'm saying, with 22 players on the team, then you gotta like how many subs do you have? Because again, so there's going to be people that cycle in. They may be important to the team that may not be out there as the official starters. So do you mic those guys up too, or is it limited to only 22 guys? Or I guess more than that. Because you got to have 11 on offense, 11 on defense, so 22 on each team, so that's 44 guys. So it's almost like I said, it's almost 50 guys that you need to be mic'd up at least. And like I said, that just seems like a hassle. And like I said, I don't know how it would work if everybody's talking at the same time, because you really only hear the quarterback calling out the signals, which I don't know what I guess it's like the overhead mic. I'm not really sure which mic that's from specifically. But you hear that, then obviously, like I said, with the mic'd up clips, you hear that part. But I said how that's going to work, and then like I said, all the vetting and all the other things, it would be a whole mess. There's no way they would mic up all the players. Now, micing up some of them, all right, cool, but then like I said, unless you have a guy on top of the bleep button, it's just going to be too hard. It'd be too much to have to overlook and too much of a hassle, or like an extra job for somebody to do that isn't normally accustomed to doing that job. So I'm saying, like I said, there's going to be a lot of curse words that just get missed just because, again, you're just the person that's not quick enough on the bleep. It'll be a mess. Now, would it be fun to watch guys or listen to guys like Phillip Rivers or Richard Sherman or even like a DeSean, like guys like that, talk for 4 quarters of a game? Absolutely. Must-see TV. I'd be locked in every week. But that's just, like I said, that's just unreasonable to expect the NFL to want to do at this time. Because, like I said, it'd just be too hard. Like having a couple guys on the field be mic'd up at the same time. Because, like, what if they're talking at the same time? Like, you got to figure out the different audio channels and figure out the way they're not just, like, going to sound all over top of each other. If DeSean's talking, while Carson Wentz is calling out the cadence. Like, it'll sound weird if you have them all mic'd up at the same time. I'm saying usually they have, even if there is that, like, I don't know, I forget if they did this at the Pro Bowl or not, but usually if you have someone mic'd up and you're talking to them or have them live during the broadcast, you're only gonna hear the one guy. Like, you're not gonna hear 21 other guys also talking, potentially. Here's people calling out signals, stuff like that, but, like, mic'd up wise, like, that would just be a whole mess. And like I said, then if you're gonna mic up everybody and just pick different pieces, like, will guys get offended if they don't get chosen, stuff like that. But like I said, it's too complicated to do. It's fun in theory to think about and be like, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea. But like in theory, it's like there's no way this would ever work. But shout out to DeSean for at least coming up with a possible solution. Like I said, no chance I don't want to say no chance, but very slim chance the NFL would ever go for this. But like I said, guys like me, a lot of sports fans out there would be more than happy because that's better than literally nothing. And like I said, without fans, already going to be weird. So just like get some extra noise. All right, like if you want to do the mic'd up and just have somebody, I mean, they already have people mic'd up every game. Usually the teams put that out on their own, like the day or two after the games. A lot of their guys are mic'd up. But so if you want to show that more on the broadcast, cool, by all means. And like I said, micing up everybody, there's no chance that would ever work. But again, sounds good. It's better than the fake crowd noise, but because that's, oh god, that would be so awkward. It's just like when like a laugh track's like injected into like a TV show. Like you can tell when a laugh track is because like the people will start talking while the laughing's still going on. When it's like a real live studio audience, you can tell usually they try to wait, or even sometimes they'll react with like laughter because like the fans will be laughing at something, and you can see them kind of have their own, I wouldn't say moment, like kind of like again like Saturday Night Live type of thing, but just like the studio audience. So you see the people kind of like struggling to keep their composure or trying to like look away from the camera or do whatever. As well as like I said, when there's a laugh track, the people just act as if nothing's happening because nothing is happening. And then like I said, the laugh tracks always sound awkward. That's why when you're watching these shows, which if you watch like the late night shows with like Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel, those kind of guys where they do like their opening monologue, where there's like supposed to be laughter there, just like there's like that weird awkward silence, and even like that is weird. Obviously you become accustomed to it, so it is what it is, but like the first couple times you hear it, you're like, this sounds so awkward. Because when I mean, same thing if you saw a comedian live, if they were telling jokes and they bomb and they're not funny and no one laughs, like it's awkward in the room. And the same thing with this, if you're saying jokes over TV or what would be normally in front of a live studio audience, and they're not laughing, then it's just going to be awkward silence in that room. Like I said, when they're doing it at home, so they don't have a studio audience, it's just awkward silence, which I expect is what's going to be like in those in the stands and at those games after a big play. It's going to be like literally that's what's going to happen every time somebody gets a big first down and goes for a big run or scores a touchdown. It's just going to be like, and like no one wants that. It's just awkward. Like I said, it's just awkward. Like I said, shout out to DeSean for trying to think up new things, but that's not the one. I don't know what they're going to do, but there's no way they're going to mic up everybody. Mic up a couple people, maybe, but everyone, no shot. But yeah, that'll do it for me here on another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys all for listening, taking the time out of your day. I know sports isn't necessarily the thing that's on everybody's mind and what they want to discuss and what they want to talk about or what even they should be talking about, because there are much more pressing things in the world going on than sports. Police brutality, talking to you. Or I'm talking about that, obviously. The different things that have happened with, like I said, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, even Ahmaud Arbery, which wasn't police-related, but still racially charged. And even, like I said, with people getting hurt or getting shot. I think there was a guy shot in Louisville during the protest. I know there was another guy that was shot in St. Louis by looters. Like, again, a lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff to be discussed, a lot of stuff to be thought about. And like I said, sports, especially since they're not happening, they may not be on the forefront of people's minds, but again, just wanted to try to give you guys something else to discuss or think about during this time. If you choose to, again. If you're not in the mood, I completely understand, because a lot of people are in the mood to discuss anything other than the protests right now, which is completely fair.
to me. But if you did enjoy what you heard today and have enjoyed what you've heard on other episodes, please subscribe. Please feel free to do that. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating or a nice review. Very appreciated. Very helpful. Allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss, we can then, like I said, it doesn't have to be just sports related. It can be about anything. We can discuss anything, really. And I mean, obviously, like I said, people may not be in the mood to discuss sports. They want to talk about what's going on in the world. More than welcome to talk about that with you guys as well. And with that, obviously, even though it's been on the back burner a little bit, still a pandemic going on. So, I'm going to give my normal episode, like once an episode shout out to the essential workers out there, whatever you are, and whether, like I said, nurse, doctor, delivery person. Shout out to them, because again, I've gotten a couple packages recently. Very appreciative of them being able to be timely with that, at least for the stuff I've gotten. And everyone's a little bit different, but the stuff I've gotten has all been done in a timely fashion. Grocery store workers, people that are beginning to start working, or people, or even like chefs are working at restaurants still doing takeout. People, like I said, Uber or Lyft or Grubhub or DoorDash or Postmates, those drivers that are delivering people food because they can't, or they guess they don't want to leave their house and risk getting the run, and you're doing it for them. The Instacart people, even though not all those jobs necessarily are essential, but anybody that's been working through this pandemic, that has been providing the public with a service of some way to keep them as safe as they can be, and thus putting yourself at risk. Shout out to you guys. If you don't hear it enough, you will hear it at least from me. You guys are appreciated. Like I said, that'll do it for me here today. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.